Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today. We're so excited to see you all here. I can see all the smiling faces and excited chatter in the chat already, so that's really brilliant. So yes, I am Grace Bremner, and I've had the absolute privilege to run the Creative Civic Change programme over the last 4 years, based here at Local Trust. And I'm delighted that you're able to join us this morning, along with our co-funders, the Esme Fairbairn Foundation, Calouste Gulbenkian Foundation, and the National Lottery Community Fund. Today, we hope to give you an insight into how the programme worked and what we have learned along the way, and most importantly, how you might take some of that learning into your work. We'll be hearing from our amazing team of evaluators, Amanda, Noosh and Sarah, as well as from artists and community leaders, George Hill, Dadaride Sopo and Heather Morrison. And after that, we're going to break into smaller groups where you'll have a chance to meet the projects directly and hear about in more detail what happened on the ground. When the time comes, you're going to be automatically invited to join a breakout room and brought back after 20 minutes for the finale. The chat is open for observations, and if you wish to tweet about this event, please do use hashtags Creative Civic Change and Community Creativity. So, to start us off this morning, I'd like to share a magic short film which hopefully gives you a sense of the joy that has been Creative Civic Change. So, here we go.
Creative Civic Change is an experimental funding programme supporting 15 communities across England to shape and lead creative interventions and to make positive social change where they live. Despite much of this £4 million programme taking place during the global pandemic, Creative Civic Change has been transformative for people, places, artists and funders. From community choirs to carnivals, Creative Civic Change communities have transformed public services, created connections between local people and brought abandoned spaces to life, proving that creativity is not just a nice to have, but a vital tool for communities to problem solve and imagine a better future.
The Creative Civic Change funding was just so amazingly important for us.
It's brought our parish together.
They didn't really know anyone in the area, so I've kind of become part of the community through the project.
It's given us the space and the flexibility to be able to grow.
As well as having a positive impact on local areas, the programme has also helped local artists to emerge, flourish and become more integrated in their communities, adapting and learning as part of the process.
Doing this today is completely different to anything I've ever done before.
It gave people the belief that they could do, and what they were doing was actually art. And people, oh, that's art? What do you mean? And we said, yeah, we're all artists, and the confidence that it can be done.
The programme was experimental in the freedom, flexibility and trust given by the funders to communities without a track record in arts development and funding. The communities were given real decision-making power over every element of their work and were able to react quickly, designing local solutions to local need.
Being able to access a pot of money to try something out has made a massive difference for people.
So it's given me the confidence to give up my full-time job, and now today I consider and am a full-time artist.
From the very start to where they are now, it's just been amazing.
Creative Civic Change not only trusted communities with money, but provided care and support as they worked to realise their ambition, recognising the mammoth efforts and hard graft it takes to sustain a community.
I wouldn't be doing what I was doing if it wasn't for this project.
It's given me a lot more confidence to go into different directions that I never even thought about.
I'm choking up. It really has changed my life for the better. It's given me better openings to opportunities and be seen and be heard finally.
Creative Civic Change worked. It worked for funders, for the artists and professionals involved, and for the communities at its heart. We ask funders, policymakers, politicians and friends to take the principles of trust, care and creativity forward to help others build stronger and more connected communities everywhere.
If you invest long term in communities, they will make a difference for themselves, and you know, it's just such a fantastic scheme and it needs to be repeated.
Oh, I hope you all enjoyed that. I definitely get teary every time I watch it. So yeah, I hope that shared some of what CCC has been for us all. So we've just been so lucky to work with these communities over the past 4 years, and I have learned so much from them, and I know that the other funders have too. So to explore that a little, I'm now going to welcome Louisa Hooper, who's the director of the Colusa Gulbenkian Foundation, and she's going to share some reflections on what it's been like to fund Creative Civic Change. It's been a remarkable collaboration with all 4 funders, so thank you for sharing your thoughts with us, Louisa.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. Grace has asked me to reflect on the experience of funding Creative Civic Change, which I hope you can tell from the film we've just seen has been a total joy. Creative Civic Change was set up as an experiment between 4 funders, the National Lottery Community Fund, Esme Fairbairn, Local Trust and us, the Colusa Gulbenkian Foundation, and was built using the learning and experience of all 4 organisations. Whilst each funder came with its own interests and priorities, Creative Civic Change was made possible by a unifying interest in co-creation, community leadership and trust, and a willingness to take risks and to see what happened when we transferred as much decision-making power as possible to the communities at the heart of the programme. For us at the Colusa Gulbenkian Foundation, Creative Civic Change was a flagship project of our Civic Role of Arts Organisations programme, which encourages publicly funded arts organisations to work with and for their local communities, using the transformational power of art for individual and societal change. Creative Civic Change took this to the extreme, putting local communities in charge of their own creative and cultural lives. Despite initial assumptions that this approach may come with a compromise on artistic quality, the projects involved have consistently produced excellent creative and artistic outputs, whilst also developing skills, building engagement, and nurturing connection, and all of these things leading to transformational change in their local areas. All 4 funders involved in Creative Civic Change have learned a huge amount from the programme. The trust and care built into every element have created a culture of learning, allowing us to hear directly from the grassroots about what works and what doesn't within our own funding practices. And it's clear that in order for the sector to support this kind of co-creation better, we'll need to design new ways of funding, assessing, managing and evaluating the work. Creative Civic Change has been a great start, but we look forward to working with you all on how we can build on this in the future. CCC is a unique, but it's a replicable model, demonstrating how the arts and communities are intertwined and mutually beneficial. It's proven that communities can shape, lead, and commission their own arts and creative interventions for positive social change, and we'd love to see it built on and repeated. Please do get in touch with any of the funders here today to be part of that conversation. And finally, I want to give special mention and personal thanks to 2 people. Margaret Bolton, who's Director of Policy at Local Trust, who had the brilliant idea for Creative Civic Change in the first place, and Grace, to you for the exceptional coordination of the programme over the last 4 years. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Louisa. It's been the best job in the world, as I'm sure I've said 100 times over. But yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, just a thanks back to the funders, I think, from all the communities, because the kind of trust, care and creativity that we've baked into this programme was set at the top, and it was been such a brilliant partnership. So thank you so much. And now to the meat of things, I would love to introduce our evaluation team, Sarah Boyling, Amanda Smethurst and Noosh Hagdadi, who are with us today on Zoom, but we've pre-recorded an interview with them. We are going to hear about the evaluation findings and approach, so here are their thoughts.
Hello everyone, I'm Sarah Boyling and I'm 1/3 of the evaluation team. I'm going to introduce the outcomes of the programme, the difference that Creative Civic Change made to communities, to project workers and to artists. Our evaluation identified 5 outcome themes: connection, confidence, creativity, skills and well-being. People felt more connected. 89% of respondents to Communitree, which is our creative survey, had met new people and felt more part of their local community. Artists realised there were other creatives living locally and told us how they now felt included in a supportive network of peers. Confidence grew. Confidence to get involved in creative and community activities, and confidence to step up from participant to leader. Community members are now running workshops, markets and events. Project workers too described how they now feel able to speak up and question those in power. Creativity was nourished. People discovered creative skills and interests they didn't know they had, or a creative spark that had been dormant for years was rekindled, with 89% of respondents saying they felt more creative. Projects valued, supported and paid artists properly, and this work led on to other commissions and opportunities. And for some, it was the catalyst to establish or re-establish their own creative business. The programme developed learning and skills. For many project workers, Creative Civic Change was transformative. They learnt about letting go, collaboration, listening and community leadership. The 15 communities worked with almost 900 individual artists, and those we spoke to told us how they felt able to experiment and take risks, learn new approaches, especially around co-creation, and develop their own practice. Finally, we saw how Creative Civic Change nurtured well-being. Feeling happy, proud and included were the top 3 emotions reported in our survey. People told us how their involvement provided an emotional support, so they felt better able to cope with life's challenges. The programme produced many joyful moments too, and its positivity and its collaborative ethos created a real sense of hope and possibility.
So hello, I'm Amanda Smethurst, the second third of the evaluation team, and I'm going to share with you our reflections on the growing conditions, the things that make these changes possible. We've described these as the shared principles, resources and the support system for Creative Civic Change. These growing conditions have underpinned the work of the communities and were integral in the approach to the programme by the funders. We have observed 9 shared principles which were embedded in the programme and lived by everyone involved, the communities, funders, artists and evaluators. Most critical of these were trust and care. We see these as the taproots, the foundations from where other principles build. This feeling of being trusted enabled greater honesty between the projects and the funders. Project workers shared the challenges they were facing, and they didn't feel judged or concerned that they would be penalised if things didn't go to plan. They also gifted this trust onto residents, to artists and to partners. The projects created an interconnected web of care across project workers, communities and artists. Project workers spoke about how they felt cared for by their colleagues, how their emotional health was looked after. Artists described being supported and mentored by the projects. Many residents likened their involvement with Creative Civic Change to a family. We also identified principles like flexibility, which allowed people to try things out, inclusivity, positivity, and saying yes. Creative Civic Change was resourced and funded over 4 years. This committed investment meant communities could confidently plan and lead projects that have made a real difference. Fundamentally, the programme couldn't have happened without passionate local residents committed to their community, who were keen to share and develop their knowledge and experience. There were elements of the programme which wrapped themselves around the projects and created a support system. Some of these were practical, like having an initial development phase, when projects spent 6 months listening to their communities and creating a shared vision. Others were more relational, from accessing bespoke support from critical friends and experts, to Grace, the senior programme coordinator at Local Trust, who modelled genuine care and trust in all she did. Peer learning was an opportunity for the 15 communities to share experiences, with projects learning with and from each other. We created a space that celebrated successes and a place to be honest about the challenges and failures, knowing this is where the richest learning can sometimes be.
Hi everyone, I'm Anusha Hagdadi from Beat Freaks and I represent the final third of the evaluation team. I'm going to talk briefly about our approach to evaluating the Creative Civic Change programme, focusing on 3 elements. First, collaboration. One of the most distinctive elements of the programme was that projects were encouraged to decide and measure the changes that mattered to them, rather than changes prescribed by the funders. This was a really exciting challenge for us as evaluators, to co-create that outcomes framework for the whole programme with the projects themselves. So we did this by using creative workshops, where projects could explore the changes that mattered the most to their communities. Second, creativity. Creativity is so core to the programme that it was really, really important to us to thread it through our approach as much as we could. So one way that we did this was to co-design a series of evaluation tools with the projects to help us capture some meaningful quantitative data. We designed 3 tools, all themed around this idea of the community: a digital survey, a paper form, and a physical creative data capture tool. And that community motif has allowed us to present our findings to you in a way that feels really true to the spirit of the programme. A massive, massive thanks to artist Rebecca Davis from the Portland In Project in bringing this to life for us. Third, the power of stories. Whilst the quantitative data we have collected is powerful and useful, the impact of creative civic change can only be appreciated through the real stories of the people involved in the programme. Storytelling is the beating heart of our approach, and we recognised that early on. And we really leaned into this by making spaces available for sharing stories, by amplifying community voices, and by drawing stories and quantitative data together to tell that bigger, deeper, richer story. For that full story, please do check out the website via this link.
One of the things that surprised me about the CCC programme was, given the world-shattering impacts of COVID and the fallout from the murder of George Floyd over the last few years, was that actually when we spoke to projects towards the end of the programme, those outcomes that they thought about at the beginning were still absolutely crucial and fundamental. And it just, for me, really confirmed the value of having 6 months of really real conversations about what are the changes that we want to bring about in this place. And they stayed true the whole time.
It might not be a surprise, but unexpected. We didn't know COVID was going to happen. We didn't know COVID was going to fall within the lifespan of the project. And what we saw and witnessed was how communities and individuals worked with each other to support each other, the level of care, the level of consideration that they had, and the commitment to still making the project happen was really amazing. With creativity at its heart, the people in really difficult moments throughout that time over the past 4 years has been a really special piece that we simply didn't know would happen at the beginning.
I think the greatest impact has been not actually just the feeling of happiness, which is what we often associate with well-being, but the connection and the support network that Creative Civic Change has created, which has really given people a place to go, to kind of leave their worries behind, to navigate this really difficult world that we're living in. We know that the arts has got great impact on well-being, but that sense of connectedness and support and family, I don't think I expected that.
One of the most powerful impacts on well-being in the communities that I have witnessed in Creative Civic Change is actually how the combination of creativity and connectedness has really given people kind of inner strength almost to cope with things in their lives that are real challenges, like bereavement, like court cases, things like this that take a huge amount of personal kind of resilience to get through. Creative Civic Change has actually helped people through those kind of life moments, which I think is very powerful and not something I expected.
So for me, the greatest learning for funders is about trusting and listening to the people that you're funding and trusting that they know what's needed within their communities. and because that's where they are within where they live. And trusting that a process around enabling resource to be used within those communities will lead to outcomes, but not needing to define and lock those down at the beginning. Really listening and holding that space for people to try things out, for people to get things wrong, for people to experiment is so valuable.
You can trust communities to come up with the outcomes that matter to them, and they will be invested in them, and they will measure them, and evaluators can turn those into a programme framework that really works. For me, that's the biggest learning for funders.
Thank you so much to Amanda, Noosh and Sarah, who have poured so much love into this programme over the past 4 years. They've been such an amazing proof that evaluation can really add richness and joy to a programme. So thank you so much. They will be in the Zoom facilitating 3 of our breakout groups in a minute, so you'll be able to ask them any questions there, but also do get in touch with us if you'd like to hear more. We're also going to be providing everybody with our tree, which you can see on screen any minute and via a QR code that we'll show in a second. And you'll also be receiving a copy of the post over the next few weeks. But this is a kind of creative summary of our findings, not in any way everything that we have. We've got so much richness through the website and through conversations with people. But yeah, this is a summary of our findings. And thank you so much to Rebecca Davis, who's one of our community leaders from the Portland In Project, who designed it and really brought it all to life. So thank you so much to her. So now, having heard about a few of the key principles from the programme, we're going to hear from Heather Morrison, George Hill and Dadaride Sopo about being part of this project. Again, they're with us today, but we pre-recorded a little film ahead of time. Here we go.
Hello, my name is Heather Peake Morrison and I'm an artist, and I've been working with Creative Civic Change for 4 years as a critical friend and an artist. It's really a really big privilege to be able to talk to you all about what an impact Creative Civic Change has had on us all, because we've been working together, the 3 of us, for the last 4 years, haven't we?
Yes.
And we've been on a real journey, and we thought that we might try and explain how powerful and extraordinary Creative Civic Change has been for us all. Who'd like to start? Who feels most changed or has the biggest insight or that they want to share with everybody?
The Creative Civic Change has been a very powerful creative force within our communities for the past 4 years. I mean, it has been better than we thought it would be. And I stand here as testament to the power of that creative force that we've all experienced in and around the country. And there's a lot that wouldn't have happened. There's a lot of access to places that our communities wouldn't have had it not be for the Creative Civic Change process. For me, that is quite fundamental. And I think George can explain it a little further on that.
Yeah, so within my community of Kingswood and Hazel Leys, there has been a Creative Civic Change collectively and individually. Within the group, there's been a lot of confidence, a lot of capacity growing. We've been involved in so many great activities creatively. You know, we've went to many places that many people in our community would not necessarily have had the opportunity to do, you know, without, you know, Creative Civic Change being here, and just working as a collective within Kingswood and Hazel Leys, providing, enabling and allowing and supporting artistic opportunities for our community has been it's just joyful.
Both of you, what would you say about one of the things that I think has been most powerful and has caused the most amount of change to happen is the fact that there's art and creativity at the heart of everything that we do. And the thing about art in particular is that it comes from here. So there's sort of like, it's quite difficult to measure and also quite difficult to explain what that means in terms of change. And I've seen that with both of us. We've all had moments, haven't we, when we know that the art is the most powerful thing because it speaks to us directly, and it allows us to reflect, and it also allows us to show to understand who we really are in the world.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in total. The art is quite important, and the notion that was there before that you had to be an artist to experience art was debunked by the Creative Civic Change. Here I am, not identifying myself as an artist, an ordinary resident who then rose to be a project lead, and I'm of a migrant background. That is the power of the Creative Civic Change, the power to bring two communities together. Our CCC brought Birchfield and Welsh House Farm communities in Birmingham together. Those communities wouldn't have ever met had it not be for the Creative Civic Change. Now we are friends. Now we are much more than friends. Friendship that will last us a lifetime. But what was very critical about the Creative Civic Change and the art that you're talking about being personal is that the funding itself, it was personal. The funding trusted residents with their own creative activities. That is fundamental. The residents were allowed to co-create that art that was personal to them, to choose what they want in the way they wanted it, and it almost brought those dreams to life. That was fundamental.
Yeah, and Heather was saying as well that the art itself is really important. You know, that's the vehicle to make the changes that we've seen in the area. And just one example of that would be the murals that Kingswood and Hazellea's Creative Civic Change have done. Was, you know, it was such a long process, but there was a lot of learning, because one of the things that we were asked about is the learning that we've experienced in this Creative Civic Change journey, and it's been just there's a little phrase that I always use is every day is a school day, so there's always an opportunity to learn from each other within the group, learn from the community and colleagues, and just working together to give people that chance to have their say. So local people making decisions that impact the place that they live and work in.
The most important thing that I've learned from working in Creative Civic Change the last 4 years, and working with both of you two and many other communities I've worked with, I think I've worked with every single group on lots of different things, is that although I've done that, I'm an artist that usually makes very large scale public works all over the place, you know, hugely involved and massive sort of fabrication and project management and all that kind of stuff. But actually with Creative Civic Change, I've actually made nothing. I've just worked with the groups using the thinking and artistic processes that I know to work in a really beautiful, non-egotistical, non-hierarchical way to collaborate together. And I've learned so much that my practice is fundamentally changed, and had the most beautiful conversations about everything from poetry to public art to murals to gardening, you know, cooking and so on, because art is everything. Actually, it encompasses everything, and I've learnt an enormous amount from all of you.
Well, Heather, you said that you haven't made anything, but what you've done is you've made us, or helped us grow. You know, helped us as a group and as individuals grow. So there has been making. There's been that phrase that you use often is composting. You know, and so there is that as well. And it's just been I just want to say that Creative Civic Change has been a wonderful, wonderful experience, and I thank those involved for on behalf of my people here in Kingswood and Hazellee. So thank you.
Yeah, I also want to reiterate what you've said, Heather. I mean, creativity was often bottled as its own thing, which is separate from engagement or project management or whatever. But what we found is that your support was fundamental in helping us to realize how powerful we were, even though we are at the grassroots. It was not just about the art. It was about the engagement, talking to people, people communing, people eating together, people remembering each other at Christmas beyond whatever project we were doing. The Creative Civic Change allowed for conversations that wouldn't have otherwise happened without the talk of creativity. It brought out many community creatives who never called themselves as such. So we're talking about a force that went beyond the art. We didn't have to make anything, because through Creative Civic Change, we were all making something within ourselves. That was the creative bit. The art bit was the personal stuff, the growth in people who were leading it, in people who were contributing to it, the growth of the residents to connect from across the neighborhoods and across the counties, the friendships that were forged, and really on behalf of Hard Times Requires Furious Dancing, and on behalf of all the groups that received this funding, I would like to thank the funders fundamentally for trusting us with the funds in the first place. Without the trust, very many poor communities are not trusted with the processes that they need to go through to find change. But we were trusted, and we say thank you for that. This is just the beginning. A lot of work needs to be done for many, many more years. And we hope this has proved, if it was in any way a test, it has proved that we can do it. And the future looks bright. If ever we can say this is one thing we're taking from Creative Civic Change, it is that it has fundamentally changed the way we see ourselves.
Well, it's been lovely talking to you, George, and talking to you, Daddy Ray. We're going to have to wrap this up. We could talk for ages about everything that we've learned over the last 4 years. And we are actually going to be recording a podcast after this. George and I have been travelling all over the country, meeting lots of different groups. Our podcast is called Don't Get Any Ideas. And you'll be able to listen to much more extended conversations with people like Daddy Ray and lots of other people from the CCC group on the CCC website. So it's been a pleasure. So thank you and goodbye.
Thank you so much to George, Heather and Dadarai there. I hope that gives you a sense of the magic, and I see from the chat that's exploding, we can, these are amazing areas and amazing communities, and they've learned so much. And now it's, and do follow, go and check out the podcast because they are so brilliant. They're really, really inspiring. But now is your chance to meet the projects that are here today. So Sarah, Noosh, Amanda Smethurst, Amanda McLaren and myself are each going to be hosting a breakout room with 3 of our projects. And it'll be your opportunity to ask questions and hear from directly from the areas. You'll be automatically invited to a breakout room in a minute and return back again in 20 minutes. And to end today's event, we're going to be showing you an artwork created by Heather Morrison about some of her impression of the Creative Civic Change programme. So I really look forward to seeing you all back here in 20 minutes. Thank you so much for that. It was such a lovely breakout group. I hope everyone else had the same, but just the same conversations come up over again about how magic this programme has been, what a safe space it created, but also that 3 years is not long enough, and the work that needs to continue needs a lot more time, a lot more funding. And yes, that is the lesson. We're not trying to shy away from all of the difficult things and all of the failures that this programme has in changing, but actually it has also brought us so much joy. So to end, we've always found it really difficult to sum up Creative Civic Change in a project plan, in an evaluation form, in any of these kind of formulaic ways. It's just never seemed to translate. So one thing we wanted to end on today was a reflection from Heather Morrison, who's one of the artists that we've worked with all the way through the programme, and she has been drawing throughout. And so we have worked with her to kind of show you what Creative Civic Change really looks like to us. And so I'll pass on to Heather.
Hi everybody, and welcome to my little studio at home. And behind me are some of my illustrations and drawings that I've made kind of in response to the end of Creative Civic Change. But I've been drawing all the way through, because as I've been having conversations and talking to many of you over the last 4 years, and I've got to say I did join Creative Civic Change for 6 days 4 years ago, and it just kind of blossomed and just got bigger and bigger and so on. So while I was having conversations with you about things like chip shops as community centres, or dismantling the hierarchy and ego in funding programmes, or thinking about pedicures as contemporary art, or crafting as activism, and discovering G's Bend quilters, or dog walking and talking, and how walking and movement creates new creative thoughts and so on. I just kept drawing synesthetic like representations of what I thought was happening. And as I looked back over those drawings, what I realised is what we were doing in Creative Civic Change is we were creating a new world. Well, maybe not even a new world, more like a new galaxy or a new universe, and that were these 15 like planets and groups, and I kept having the extraordinary privilege of being asked to speak to you, or you speaking to me, and I was a critical friend, but also really I was just an artist who was collaborating with all of you. And so I'm going to just show you a few of these drawings. You're all going to get the drawings sent to you, and they are just a small selection really of the many, I've got hundreds of them here, of quite what that, you know, that thing about working with creativity and art, it's just that magical, extraordinary connection that you know happens. You feel it when you work as an artist, and I know you all understand what that might mean. So the first drawing I'm going to show you here is that way. That's it. So one of the things that I thought about, that's better. So one of the things I thought about a lot is how extraordinary the people that I work with are. And there was a sort of universal kind of sort of like tender, creative, competent, confident people that I work with who had agency, but also had this really extraordinary ability to think at a very small micro level, but also to think really big as well. And so this is one of my drawings of that person, of like how that person is. So you've got that bit kind of like you know, kind of circle bit here with all these kind of like other things hanging on, sort of like planets and so on behind. And then this was my drawing that I did about working with Grace. Hold on, that's it. Yeah, so Grace is kind of like this central point in the middle, and we kind of like all sort of like moved around her, and there are sort of planets and kind of like sort of moments of like anxiety and tension and difficulty and then joy that happened. And we, all of us, sort of had this moment where we would ring Grace and talk to her about what was going on, listen, reflect. That was a big thing, how incredibly reflective everybody was. So when I started to make a sort of drawings for the kind of conclusion of Creative Civic Change, the first drawing that I've made here, this is a digital piece, there we go, is, yeah, this is our galaxy. It's our Creative Civic Change galaxy. And there are black moons of possibility, and there are orange moons of warmth, and blue planets of hope, and they're spun and held by a vortex of potential. Then we go a little bit smaller. Go that way. There we are. This is our Creative Civic Change solar system, and this is a moment of planetary merging. This is like two CCC groups that are kind of like being gravitationally pulled towards each other, and then they're just starting to work together, and then another one kind of flying out and around as well. And then as we get even sort of on a kind of like another scale, this is a planet. So this is a sort of CCC planet. That way, that's it. And on the surface there is a sort of sky of ideas, and then a sort of on the ground is this sort of like incredible rich earth with a beauty sort of composting and growing. And then this thing happens all the time, is portals, like portals of possibility and portals of connecting one world to another world. I hope we all kind of like, maybe that resonates with some people in terms of like that moment when you talk to someone or someone makes something and suddenly the world expands and a door opens to somewhere else. This one in particular, I put a little tree in the centre of this portal. That was because of Corby Group, because Corby Group is just surrounded by extraordinary trees, and I felt it was the most amazing privilege to work with Corby because that's where I come from. I sure, working in your hometown, because you're all working in your hometowns, and I was able to work in my place as well. You can't underestimate what knowledge there is about growing up and understanding a place as well. And finally, as we go a little bit even further in, this is my drawing about organisms. So the CCC incubated wild new organisms all over the place, and it created, I've talked about this composting idea, and I think that's something that comes across a lot, is this idea of growing and composting. And so these organisms composted the most extraordinary, beautiful things. And then finally, really a sort of like the smallest level is the cell and cellular structures. And I think about cellular structures being like these tiny, maybe it's people, but maybe it's small moments that have absolutely evolved into radical matter. I must say that you did that to me. I've been changed completely by working with you all. It's been the most powerful experience, I've got to say. I did a couple of, because you know me, so here's a couple of little sculptures I've done. There you go, little planets. So this is our little cellular structure made into a little planet, and another one here. So you're going to get a set of these drawings which are going to be made into origami papers for you to make these out of as well. And these are little CCC planets. So finally, the last thing is that, so we couldn't meet in person, so I had a little exercise and workshop I was going to do. So what I've done instead is created a digital work which takes in all of these illustrations behind me, and using some of the words that I've talked about, and you'll be able to there's a soundtrack over the top which is kind of celebratory, so you might hear a few balloons sort of being blown up, popped, and then there's like also some sounds of compost and squidgy marshland and like planets sort of like soundtracks and so on, and we're going to play that in a second, and that will be available for you all to use and download and things as well. But you know what? It's like just a bit of art, yeah. So it's like, and we all know what that does. So I hope you enjoy it.
What a brilliant note to end on, and thank you so much for staying with us 5 minutes late. Didn't mean to do that, but whilst we're really disappointed not to have been together in person, I hope this helped make the case for how brilliant this kind of funding is and what difference it can be made. We will be in touch via email. We'll do a follow-up email with contact details and more information. There'll be a newsletter going out in the new year. The website's there, and we'll be sending out some treats in the post. But just one last thing I wanted to end on is that all 15 of our communities delivered exceptional work in exceptional circumstances, and all of them need more funding. And I just wanted to pass on the trust. We have created such an amazing environment and a relationship with them, and I just want to pass that on. So please do fund them in the future. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a really restful break over Christmas and a wonderful new year when it comes. Thank you so much.